Welcome to the Aquarian Shaman broadcast. I'm Star Wolf, your shamanic host, and I'm here to teach you how to transform yourself and transform the world. Twice a month, we'll be exploring how to develop shamanic psycho-spiritual practices to support transformation while expanding your energy field in a way that can also support others. Each episode offers dynamic experiential guidance and teachings on how to safely enter a natural altered state of consciousness using the sacred breath. Additionally, we will discuss the importance of integration and grounding this medicine into your everyday life. Stay tuned. We're about to create authentic, embodied change that will surely grow corn for the future generations. Welcome, everyone, to Transformation Network and to the Aquarian Shaman broadcast. I'm so excited to have you here today, and we begin always in ceremony because I live in ceremony every day, every minute, to the best of my ability. So I'm sending this sacred smoke to you from this smudge, and you can imagine that it's coming to you, but it's not only in your imagination. I mean, where does the smoke go when it disappears? It's going somewhere. And for those of us who open our hearts and our minds and spirits to the shamanic world, to transformation, to our spirits, we know that we're all connected. And just like we send prayers and Reiki and healing of all kinds, we can send this sacred smoke to you. And this is sage, for those of you who might be new to that, the healing properties of sage. But it's about purification and cleansing and clearing. And God, Goddess, Great Spirit, Great Mystery knows we could certainly use that in the whole world right now. So just sending that sacred smudge to just kind of help clear things and help us to be focused for the next hour together. And I'm very excited today because I have a very special person on with me. And his name is Levi Banner, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. I'm going to mention right up front before I forget that he's one of the featured people and healers and trainers in the Aquarian Shaman book that I've written about, and in that I highlight several people that I'm very close with in the world, and that we are colleagues, we're friends, we're family, we're soul tribe. And I just acknowledge them and honor them and their dedication of many years. And even though Levi is young, he's very much a master with his work, and he's just been doing it forever. So I have featured him. He's one of the people featured in this book. You can see his little picture in there up there. Let's see, where is it? It's up there. There you go. He's in the corner. And it says Levi Banner, MA astrologer, DJ, music producer, shamanic breathwork master, and Venus Rising core staff. Also, he's featured in this book as well. Do you remember that one? This one is Shamanic Breathwork, The Nature of Change. And this is a wonderful collection of beautiful tribe members around the world who are doing shamanic breathwork and beautiful things in the world. And we wanted to bring the attention to all these wonderful facilitators who are doing such powerful work in the world. So he's featured in here too. So you're getting around. You've got quite the reputation there. And that's a good thing sometimes. But I want to give you a little bit more in-depth introduction to Levi, and then we're just going to launch into a great discussion with one another. We always love hanging out with one another and catching up on what's happening with each other in the world. Levi Banner draws you into the world of spiritual teachings for healing and transformation. For music, breathwork, and astrology comprise his trinity of mystical knowledge, divining deep astrological insights through cosmic viewpoints. He creates a safe, peaceful classroom space where students can learn and grow to their fullest potential. He is a shamanic breathwork master practitioner. Mystery, transformation, healing magically combines as he leads intensive shamanic journeys. He helps participants reconnect to their highest selves. By gifting students with personal empowerment and self-healing, he strives to create a community of open-hearted difference makers. I love that. Open-hearted difference makers with world-changing potential. With a master's degree in shamanic intuitional practices and a bachelor's degree in sacred elemental studies, Levi can be found traveling the shamanic path as he conducts workshops and immersions around the globe. Enlightened techniques, ancient philosophies are transmitted into what he shares, gracing his students with an unusually, I'd say that's true, an unusually well-rounded experience and profound lifetime benefits. And there's more, but that's the highlights for Levi Banner for um, part of what he does is he's a global trotter, as they say, around the world. I don't even know how many countries you've been to. Do you know how many countries you've been to, Levi?
Oh, countries I've been to is just about 40.
Hmm.
And I think I've breathed people in most of those.
Yeah, so you breathe people in most of those countries, and I know you've done music festivals and all kinds of things. So, Levi, I'd like to ask if you would, let's go back a little bit before you started being a global trotter, if you will. And could you tell us a little bit about you and how you grew up and what happened in your life that you think has impacted you to be this person who um, lives in such an amazing way and travels around the world and brings your medicine to the world? What do you think were the factors early on in your life that influenced you and that maybe led to this point now?
Wow. Hey, everyone. So happy to be here with you, Star. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I haven't really been the most traveled person in my life. As many people I know that have been to more than twice as many countries as I grew up in Oregon, United States, and was grounded in a small town, and then Eugene, and later Portland when I was in my 20s. So I was actually really connected to my family and community there, all growing up, until I was just about 30, I didn't really travel a lot. I drove around the West Coast and explored that on the ground, but it wasn't until later when I started really traveling that I kind of caught the bug or found myself well in Bali and just across the planet. But I think growing up in the small town, it was really influential. Obviously, being with uh, you know same groups of people throughout my upbringing um, influenced me. I mean, that would influence anyone, but the way that was for me is quite an alternative group of people, I think, and my parents as well. My parents were sort of like hippies, definitely hippies at one point. Um, I think you know
Hmm.
about that past, right? And
I
they
know a little
they
bit about that.
you know, and so they ended up in Oregon, like a lot of those Grateful Dead followers did, and that little town was full of that culture of hippies that retired. It's basically a bunch of retired hippies there, and I have quite a magical mother, and she just always encouraged me um, to stay in the magic, and she got me my first deck of cards and tarot cards, and actually they were the medicine cards from grandmother Twyla's teachings, but um, and got me my first astrology book, and those kind of things. Like I got astrology from my dad. He was interested in it. So, kind of alternative sort of to the mainstream parents for sure. And powerful presence in my life and in my path. And and still in a way. But yeah, that cool hippie town was my from the get-go uh, pathway to just alternative ways of thinking. I never really fit in and ended up, you know, going sideways into kind of you could say negative path or just darker times in my teenage years and
Mm-hmm.
boredom from a small town, but yet found my way through because there was a pathway for alternative schooling and all that. And so I like consciously, you know, very clearly chose to not go to college at the beginning, and do what I wanted to because I kind of just saw the whole big picture of society and schooling and things. And I just chose, you know, artistry at that time and dancing in my 20s instead of, you know, I don't know, doing something wasn't sure about, which was a lot of people I knew were doing in college. You know, it's like you go because you're supposed to, and you don't even use the degree, and you're in debt. And that's kind of how I saw it back then, or at least from
Mm-hmm.
around me. So, anyways, it just led. I just always kind of thought that way of different than the norm, because of the coolness of my town, I guess, the specialness of the people I was
I'm
around, I guess.
envious. I'm envious having grown up in
Yeah,
Western Kentucky, to be honest. And I love Kentucky, but it was a very different, I guess you could say, social climate and that sort of thing. However, like your parents ended up being not mainstream and, going to the University of Kentucky during the height of the war protest and civil rights and women's rights, everything that's going on again now, and another octave was going on then. So I hear you. I understand. When I got to the University of Kentucky in Lexington, I felt like I had landed on another planet, and it was wonderful, and it really matched my soul. But I'm wondering about you, Levi. I know that you have a great love for music. And I know it's
yes,
one of your biggest passions, and you're really wonderful at it. You lead or facilitate festival dances around the world. You also help create many of the shamanic breathwork sets of music that people breathe to, and we can say more about that later. But in other words, when we use music to help alter states of consciousness for people, you become a real master at that, of how to put that together, to take people on musical journeys, whether they're dancing, whether they're breathing, whatever mood you want to help create for those individuals. And I believe you may have had, if I remember correctly, you part of your music or early musical start was maybe dancing or break dancing or something. I'm not quite sure.
yeah,
And maybe I'm
yeah.
bringing up something that I'm making up, but I think I've heard that you were a break dancer or something in those teen years. Can you say a little bit about your love for music and how it kind of started for you?
Sure, it goes back to the same like having parents that were so musically like that music was part of they were touring around with bands and playing music themselves. So I grew up my dad and playing the banjo and being in a band and you know stories of his tour of Europe and all these things. And so I acquired their records eventually, um, and loved them. It's just always loved the music. They loved it. It's just part of my upbringing. It's just part of life to me. I always loved music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, however, having the like kind of like folk, bluegrass, rock and roll kind of upbringing, I of course in the teenage years when I went sideways, you know, with my path, uh, you know, I wanted to do the opposite of, you know, as any rebel would want to do the opposite, even if they're nice and cool parents, which I came back around to love that music again, of course. But there was a time period I wanted to do the opposite, and that would be rap, hip hop, you know, and and at first, you know, just like gangster stuff and stuff when I was really young. So um so it came from wanting to do the opposite, but what I found going that direction was the positivity that hip hop truly came from and is,
Mm-hmm.
and still to this day actually at the core, it represents. It's just gone into like most of humanity. It's gone into vanity and all that. But the core of it is peace, love, unity, and having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from the 70s and 80s as well.
Yeah.
So it's
It's
just
more of a
like
tribal thing in
it
many
totally
ways.
is. It,
Yeah.
it totally is. And it's, so there's a lot to say about that.
Right. Yeah.
But that I found that positivity, the outlet of hip hop through they call it the elements. You have DJing and rapping and actually the art, graffiti and dancing. And dancing was the first thing that brought it out. And anyways, I caught the dancing bug eventually. I really wanted to DJ and I did start, but I cost money to get records and practice and all that. And I got caught up in the dancing. Like I just got swept away as soon as I started that type of dance. And I was just finishing my alternative high school, which I got out 2 years early because I found a positive way to just get out. That's what I was saying. I had an alternative path available to me. I was very lucky that way because I didn't finish the regular high school. I didn't even make it a term. So I went to the alternative high school only for a couple of years because that's all it took to get the basics out of the way. So I did. So that's when I started dancing instead of going to college at that time. And realizing that that actually kept me out of trouble, even though we were serious about it and wanted to but we were dancing. So even when we were dancing
Mhm.
against someone, you're dancing with them, you're dancing together.
What a
So
beautiful thing to dance your way through school.
pretty much. And I eventually got so into that I became a teacher of it and was teaching at schools and
Mhm.
forming and I immediately just started getting into the positive aspects of the art form, all those art forms, and working with kids and kind of helping them with that positive direction early on that I didn't know about, and
Mhm.
so so yeah, I have a
Yeah.
big dance background, and that was study of music was part of that to me was because like I said, I wanted to DJ. I was so into the music naturally that was just moving to it, but at the same time studying every beat, every making up choreography to it, and it's a constant detailed study of how the music is working and how it feels and I learned even back then the vibration of the music is when the DJ puts that on, it's like vibrations in the room and it hits people and they respond.
Right, right. So with that, I would like to ask you, can you say a little bit more about that and how that led you into or attracted you to breath work, especially breath work that was using music to activate people's consciousness while they were in a more meditative breathing. But maybe you could speak also a little bit about how you knew, because I would imagine the yoga with the breath work, because you're also a yoga master teacher, that working with yoga and the breath, and then your great love and understanding already about how music affected consciousness and moved the body and created, dances, catharsis, however it is, and how that all led you in eventually to becoming really a master shamanic breathwork facilitator and having your own congregation, and sharing, um, the healing energy of that all around the world.
Yeah, well, it does. It started with what I was speaking about is that awareness that the DJ's music is what commands the party. um, I found yoga through the dance as well. That let me say it this way is that I was stretching and I found one of the more life-changing moments in my life was when I was stretching to dance and my friend who had just read a book about yoga um, shared what he had learned, which was close your eyes and breathe this way. And when I did that, closed my eyes with my, stretched out and breathed a certain way, I felt that I saw a spark, or I felt this, it just was this
Mhm.
boom spark moment where I was like, wow, there's this whole just part of myself that I wasn't even paying attention to, basically. It's this whole inner world, other, part of myself that's kind of always been there. And it's like, bam, right there, high. And so I sought that. I'm still seeking that since that moment, and so it brought me very close to yoga over those next couple of years. So now I'm in my 20s, and I'm I'm just wow, fascinated with the study of yoga. And so I'm dancing and doing the yoga, and teaching both, and all that. And so when I took my yoga training, my first one was also a big change. Changed my diet, changed my lifestyle completely. Then that was finally the like moment where I'm like, okay, just like changing my personality to be more me, just changing
Yeah.
my no matter who I'm around, even though it's when I became sober, basically. And even with my friends still, drinking and partying and dancing as I was, um, I decided to change myself, even in the midst of my core
Hmm.
group that I've been around so intricately for so long. I had to be me. And
Yes.
so that all faded away, though. I found yoga through that, and so it carried me out of that, and I got carried into yoga and out of the United States, really. But I went into yoga and went to India and all that stuff, and teaching became a teacher. I was already teaching kids dance. I already started doing that, but when I took the yoga training, I started teaching immediately, and taught for so long, just until a couple of years ago. I rarely teach anymore, yoga, but it was a good 15 years of like sharing it all over the
Yeah.
world. And anyways, I noticed that the music, yeah, I brought that awareness of the power of music into yoga. So I just had the amazing playlists. I had so much focus on the playlists. The stretching and instructing came very easily to me, personally, natural to just share what
Hmm.
I've done, what I
You're a
do.
natural
And
teacher. When you
I
learn
found
something, you
that.
pass it
I
on.
found that.
It's-
Yeah, I
Yeah.
found that. And so um I'm teaching yoga, and I have this music going all the time, and creating certain lists for certain flows. And it was just fascinating to see what was meditative, what was activating, what was all of that. And wow. So when I found yoga, it was that moment of breath. It was that moment
Hmm.
of take a breath and become aware of what comes up from that. Brings out, you know. So I noticed my inner world because of that moment of breath, not because I was like stretching exactly. It was the breath. And I knew that from that moment. So when I found the breathing aspect of yoga, which is really like it's the main part of the stretching as well, most important aspect was always breathing to me. So, anyways, I got very into the breath in yoga. It's called pranayama. It's part of yoga. And I went to India and studied with a master, and all that. So when I found breath work, it was a huge hit. It was because breath work is quite different than the path of pranayama, path of yoga. It's almost opposite technique in a way. Sometimes brings you to the same place, but quite a different technique of connected breath versus holding your breath, retaining breath for a meditative state. So I loved that, and I still do that. I still practice that daily. But when I laid down to breathe in a breathwork class in which I had never heard of all that time, um, it was an instant love, an instant knowing that this is what
Hmm.
I'm this is what I'm going to do next. This is wow. How did I not know about that? And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, here we go. And so then there's part I wrote in my book about, you know, moving to Bali and discovering you and Venus rising, chapter 23. And
would you say a little bit about that? I really
mm,
treasure the moment that we connected over back in the day of Skype.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like could you say a little bit about that and what happened from there?
Absolutely. So when I moved to Bali, it was the moment I moved to Bali, there's all these cool, you know, practices, you know, being offered. It's one of those hubs of spiritual stuff. And so breath work comes up right away as breath work. Okay, I've got to try that. I don't know, something with breathing. And so that instant, like, oh my God, wow, this is so me. I can't believe that I've been waiting for this. I didn't even know it.
Mhm.
So, you know, I did a class with some people, and I wasn't technically impressed with the people, even though I respected them, I like them, whatever.
Mhm.
I knew they hadn't been doing it that long, a couple of years only. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but who are the masters? If this has been around for a couple decades already, you know, a while already, well, who's been doing it the whole time? Who invented it, you know? And who are the masters? And so at that point, I had to go online and look around. Um, there were people in town doing it, but I was seeking certification. I wanted to be initiated right away. I just like, let's go through this process. I want to do what it takes to be a breath worker. And it was quite a synchronistic experience. My whole path was very synchronistic at that time, and it was very clear. I was watching the messages. I don't know if you out there, if you know, um, notice the messages in your life that are, it's almost like something is telling you something. You know,
Mhm.
you see certain words on a sign, or somebody says something that you couldn't possibly know, or I don't know, a little bird chirps at a certain moment. And it just my eyes were wide awake for those kind of synchronicities happening, and they were abundant at that time. And there were really certain ones, like really particular ones that were most profound. And one of them was when I was okay. So I've tried breath work. I'm in Bali, across the world from where I grew up, so rooted in Oregon. And now I'm across the world, Asia, Southeast Asia. I didn't know anything about Bali when I moved there, and I couldn't sleep that night. And I went downtown to look online. You know, can't sleep, so okay, let's do that breathwork thing again. Like who, you know, and I doubt Venus Rising was really that high up in the searches, you know, back then. But somehow it came across my feed, you know, and I click on shamanic breathwork. What's that? I was already doing shamanic things, which that kind of got left out. I had already really started getting back into the um, some of my roots and the way people live in Oregon and stuff with ceremony and shamanism as a practice and
The
all that.
elemental world.
Totally, that's a good way to
Yeah.
say it. But even
Mhm.
my yoga that I was doing was like considered a shamanic yoga, and
Mhm.
worked with the elements, very similar to how we do now, and all that. Yeah, so my eyes are open to the elemental world and all this, and so I go downstairs, shamanic breath work, and when I clicked that, so that night was a full moon. It must have been early in the morning or something with the moon about to set in the background. And Venus is right next to the moon that night. And there's a special cycle of Venus that we won't get into right now, but I was just learning about it because my astrology path, another facet of this whole story, is I've been into astrology since I was young. And I just started studying with a really particular school, which was also synchronistic to the story. So, you know, many ways to explain all this. But the point being is that Venus was next to the moon, right in my window. And when I clicked that, and it was a really special cycle, very connected to me and my chart, you could say. I would say it was very connected to me. And when I clicked that, Venus Rising is the website.
Oh my
comes up.
gosh.
It's rising, and there's a wolf howling at a moon that looks just like that. It's like an identical picture to that moon, same color. It's not like a red moon. It's that like silver moon that was in the picture
Mm.
with the wolf. And I was just like, wow, that's crazy. It's just Venus rising, Venus, the moon's right there. And so I was like, okay, well, this is it. And
How
so then I had
how
to
much
read it,
more clear do we have to get, right?
yeah. So honestly, Star, I thought it's kind of weird. I'm like, I don't know, that's just kind of, I don't know about this site here. This is blonde lady. But I trusted in the universe, and especially so I wrote you right away. I wrote Venus Rising and say, hey, you guys want to come to Bali? Like, how do I, train with you? And he goes, hey, let's have a Skype call. And it's talking to you and Brad at that time was big heart opening and clarification of yes, this is the way.
Hmm. Levi, I want to take a little break right for just a minute and to say back to you that this part of your story, the whole story is, so far, is just a beautiful example to me of the spiral path, of the
Mm,
continuation instead of a circular path that just goes round and round, or a linear path that's just like going one direction, but the spiral path of continuing to start on a journey, fulfill that journey, kind of reach a peak to it, and then kind of hop onto the next evolution or rotation. It still has a similar flavor, it still has a similar calling, but it's, the next octave and continuing to stay on that journey. I think it's a life for me. The spiral journey is a lifelong journey. And if there's future lives and past lives, which I do, feel that that's true, that it will continue to spiral just as it does in the sky. Okay. And the planets, that sort of thing. But, it's one thing to talk about a spiral path. It's another to take the leaps of faith and to continue like the trapeze artist to be swinging and to let go and take hold of the next, grab hold of the next rung of or trapeze, if you will. And what I'm hearing from your story so far, and what I know of you from this time, this is when I met you over the Skype and then later in person, and I want to hear more about that. But that you'd had this whole journey already of many spirals, of leaping, and really being on the shamanic path, whether you knew it or called it that, that was, what you were on and what you were following. And that steps out of the circular path or the linear path that society accepts, and it's an unusual thing for a lot of people to make those kinds of changes. Some people, get married, have kids. There's nothing wrong with that. They get a job, they stay in that job, they retire. Their whole life is spent in one town. Maybe they move once or twice. And you've had a very transformational life. And this is why I wanted you to be actually my first guest. One of the reasons, and to speak about it, is because I would say, quite frankly, and I say this with my heart, that I sense that, that you're a real expert. And I know that we're always learning and over again. We're always going through death and rebirth and needing to find humility again and become the fool again or the innocent again. But, you know, you have a mastery of ability to trust the process and continue when it's time to let go, and to take the next rung on the ladder or trapeze or whatever, and to go to the next thing that's calling you and stepping more deeply into your calling. And so that means that you've got to be comfortable with the death of letting go of what, even though you've integrated it and maybe still bring it in, but the way you've been doing it has to change in order for you to make those big leaps of faith and step into that new incarnation. And I sense that about you from that very first time over Skype. I fell in love with you right there. I knew who you were.
likewise.
And I said to Brad at that time, and I said, watch what happens with Levi. He's like, are you sure about this? I said, I am absolutely sure. Everything inside of me said this, soul has been waiting to meet my soul, and that we have a soul connection and a soul destiny together. And that's one of the things that I guess you could say that my wolfie knows is that when somebody sniffs me out like that and then shows up the way you did, I have complete faith in that. And I still do to this day. And it's been many years now, over, I don't know how many years it's been. It's a long time. Do we know how even long it's been?
Over a decade now. Yeah, over
Yeah,
10
but
years.
way over that.
20.
But
Yeah, yeah.
anyway, so, from that conversation, this is the Aquarian shaman. So to me, you really hold the energy of the Aquarian shaman. That this is shamanism for the next eon. I don't even like the word, new age that well,
Mm.
because of some of the bad press around it, I guess, of people being airy fairy and not grounded and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But the new eon, the next era that we're entering into, and especially now, I'm wondering if you might take just a few minutes to say astrologically, um, what's happening in the bigger picture right now, and then how that's influencing you in your work in the world.
Wow.
I know
Well,
it's a big one.
that
This
is
is
a
a big one.
vast
We don't have
topic.
all day, but just a
Yeah,
thumbnail.
I strongly believe in the idea that we're at a great turning, and
Hmm.
and that this last decade, there's so much about this time period, vaguely a few years around where we are now, our lifetime basically, and especially like this year, um,
Yes.
is all part of a great turning with many many things and many cultures throughout history, like from the past, um, uh, you know, suggesting that suggesting that there are time periods, like called ages, sometimes an
Hmm.
age, an eon, that a certain theme is there, and we're very much in between two, a shift from one to the next. And there's many ways to call that. There's been many names to them, and most of those point to now. So we're in this shift, very much astrologically and in our cosmology in the past. Even with astronomy, we kind of can interpret it with that. It shows us messages, and that's what astrology is. It's kind of looking at the the stars, and you know, letting a story come from it. And here we are amidst a great change.
Mm. So this is a powerful time for people to be seeking out transformational practices such as shamanic breathwork, diving into their own shamanic astrology of what's happening for them as these alignments are happening right now. This book came out. I wrote this book actually, the first draft of it, quite a few years ago, but it wasn't until last year that I decided, to really push to get it published. And of course, I'm very proud of the book, Aquarian Shaman, especially because I got to feature some really amazing people such as yourself who are leaders at this time. And, you know, but, there was a part of me, I guess, that was kind of almost like in denial or something. I'm not sure what, but didn't really pay attention to the fact that it was coming out right as all these alignments were coming up. And then it was like all of a sudden, like, well, yeah, this is the perfect time. It wasn't ready before. Uh, Usually I have always been what some would say a little bit premature. I was born a little bit premature in my birth process. So it's kind of like I'm ready and I'm like, hey, and everybody's like, we're not ready for this yet, and I'm like, and I kind of have to wait, and I go ahead and I do what I'm doing. And then after a while, when I did breath work all those years ago, Levi, you probably remember me saying this many times, people thought I was saying breast work. I was like, no, breath work and people didn't even know what it was. They knew what yoga was, but they didn't.
Mhm.
They knew what meditate, but had no idea what breath work was. So I've been doing it so long I can remember it that when most of the people didn't know what it was, and now it's most people who are aware of transformational techniques or practices. Almost everyone is aware, whether they've done it or not. They're aware of breath work. So at this
Yes.
time, it sounds like that this is the perfect time, really, for shamanic astrology, for shamanic breath work, for the Aquarian shamans out there, such as yourself, who've been cultivating themselves all this time to become who they really are in the world, that this is the time to really shine, that this is the time to really bring the medicine to the world. And it's very exciting to have this energy. It's so strange, right? As I'm saying this, this huge plane just flew over the house. It's like some sort of,
Oh, that's what it
I don't
was.
know if you could hear it or not, but there was this
Yeah.
huge energy went over. It was just like the whole house was vibrating. And it was
Thought it
like,
was you.
no, I don't, maybe it was. People have accused me of having that kind of energy, you know, and saying it's attributed to the elemental world that is so strong within me. Boy, it
Yeah.
just went over. It was like everything was, whew, that's never quite happened to me before. So
Confirmation.
I think
Yeah.
that was a confirmation that we're
Yeah.
here to like shake things up.
Yes.
So Levi, we've got about 15 minutes left, and
Oh, okay.
I know it gets hard to believe we've
Getting
got already
started.
got 45 minutes, but I'd really love to hear from you now. Anything else that you want to speak into, whether it's the astrology, the breath work, about your own journey, what's next for you, what you're excited about, your own path as an Aquarian shaman in the world. What is it that you want to bring to the world and why at this time, why is it important or anything else that you want to share about?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I certainly relate to you being ahead of your time, ahead of your eon. Um, because even in my short time of breath work compared to you, compared to people that started it's become I watched yoga do it too. It becomes like a mainstream thing, and it's not at first. So everyone's doing it now. That's kind of how I'd say that everyone's doing it now. And it's for it's for these reasons that you just said. So kind of piggybacking, you know, confirming what you're saying is I'm seeing it out there in the world of anyone seeking um, transformation or wellness or anything. They're coming across breathwork right away, and breathwork is a vast subject. But the people seeking the like basically participating in the massive change that's happening in humanity, that's I would say undeniable, but some people like to deny things. But if you open your eyes, you're going to notice what we're speaking about. It's quite apparent. I mean, there's so many ways to describe how rapid things are changing right now. So, anyways, the practices, like you said, are just great ways to just um, be a part, ground yourself in the midst of the hurricane of change that is just
Mm.
only been building since I've seen it, my short life. Um, and so that's what's going to keep us um, ready for whatever comes. And I don't know,
Amen.
I've always been wanting to help people in some way. I used to think, at least assist them helping themselves is how I see it
Mm.
now. Help them help themselves, basically. But it is that like caring for others and wanting to be connected as people and all that has kind of been underneath all my attempts to share. And I'm going to keep doing that because it's just what's called me. It's what the messages and the confirmations, like a plane flying over you, have told me. And when I've trusted those, they're always leading me in the right way, in a good way, in a way that's been most helpful. Period. That's just how when it's clear, it's clear. When you know, you know.
Mm,
It's trusting that, and I just encourage everyone to trust it when they know. You know, we hear it, that confirmation. Let it be real. Let it be real because it is. It is. When you hear that bell, see that sign, that's what it is. It's what it is. And I'll keep doing that with the bringing it all together in a head. I'm gonna keep with the music. I'm gonna keep with the astrology. I'm gonna keep with the thing. Keep breathing and just take them further. You know, I want to create music more. That's my next kind of edge.
mm,
Honestly, is
mm,
the making my own music, the production of it, whether it's beats or instruments, just to kind of like let that out more, get into that more, and to get into the to the night sky more, and it's just basically music and the stars are an unlimited learning, an unlimited path. I can never get too good at the breath. I can never get too good at breathing.
mm,
So keep
mm,
trying and sharing what I experience and what I know that might help someone help themselves down their path.
mhm. That's really beautiful, Levi. I really, I've, I knew that about you from the beginning. All those things that you had done beforehand and all the skills that you'd acquired and everything was wonderful. I could tell that you were a lifelong student, as my mentor used to say to me, start with you're a lifelong student. And so I knew that. And that's the kind of people that are usually called to me and that I recognize. And I sense that these are the people that I want to influence. These are the people that I want as part of my tribe and our tribe. These are the people I want to train and send out into the world and support them. And so, for me, being with you and, some others that are on this similar path, I feel very blessed and I feel very much like my dear teachers. I feel very much like, just a vow of gratitude to Jacqueline Small, who introduced me to Stan Groff and to Leonard Orr, and that I was able to connect with who I consider the three greatest breathwork facilitators in the world. That's part of your background. It's part of my background, you know. And being with connected to Daniel Jumario, who I think is in, undeniably the greatest shamanic astrologer in the world, and you're like his protege as well with that work. And I think that astrology goes hand in hand. It's the as above, so below that we're trying to, find the path and looking to the stars. I think it's a great place to look, the planets, the stars, to look beyond ourselves, to look to that Aquarian energy, and to pay attention to the signs that the Creator put in the sky for us and said, here's your map, one of the maps anyway, as above, so below. And just being able to, as Grandma Twyla would say, to sniff out the path. And so you reaching out to me, and I've told my story, I don't need to tell it here, but I sniffed out Grandmother Twyla all those years ago. And she said, I've been waiting for you, and I have my own story around that. And now, yourself and others that have come along, I know when they come. I know they've sniffed me out like I sniffed out Grandmother Twyla on the wolf path, and I can feel, the path of the wolf is the path of being the shamanic teacher that is here to teach about higher love and wisdom, and to find the path and to help lead others onto the path and onto their own path, their true path. So I want to thank you for sniffing me out, for finding me all those years ago, for revealing your heart and your intentions and your passion, and then for doing something that sometimes people don't do when they first kind of get into the romantic part of all this, sticking with it. And you've been doing this now for quite a while, in addition to all the other practices you were doing. And you've had tremendous success. What I mean by that, of having large groups of people come together and do breath work with you, shamanic breath work with you around the world in all those countries that you've traveled to. And I remember being with you in Bali several times with very large groups, the yoga barn, and on New Year's Day having like a couple hundred people breathing or more, and to usher in the new year, those kinds of things. So you have really, for me, you have really really embodied the Aquarian shaman as a part of your medicine in the world with everything that you're doing. As I guess you could say, the Aquarian shaman is an umbrella for all these beautiful medicines that you carry now and bring to the world. So, in the last few minutes that we have, is there anything else that you'd really like to share? Would you like to let us know? We've got 5 minutes. Would you like to let us know where you're going to be next, or anything special you're doing, or how people can get in touch with you and participate in your offerings in the world?
Absolutely. I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude right now for being part of your pack, Star Wolf, and taking me under your wing and inviting me to be such a part of your heart. You're so in mine. So thank you for all the
I
kindness
love
and
you.
words. Love you too. People you all can find me very easily on all the social media places. So my name is Levi Banner. Levi like the jeans and banner like a flag. And Instagram is my most active place. Instagram Levi.banner. And and I have a Facebook page and SoundCloud with my music, uh, and all the same name. I do have some, I host SHIP. I host shamanic breathwork training, both with the core team of Venus Rising, Star Wolf included, uh, as well as on my own, when they're not coming all the way to Asia, hosting shamanic breathwork trainings around the world, several times in a year. So you can find that on the shamanicbreathwork.org. All of our events as Venus Rising, and mine are in there as well. As well as, yeah, I do some other retreats and trainings. I've taught many astrology trainings, and I have some online trainings. And you can find that with my astrology teacher school, which is turningoftheages.com, Turning of the Ages Mystery School. And we have online astrology training and in person as well. And yeah, currently 2025 in June, I have a trip to Scotland to some very sacred site, a very powerful standing stone circle called Callanish in Scotland. And yeah, that's in June. So you can find that on my Instagram and stuff like that, in astrology school. So yeah, just look for me in your city or town. Follow me on the places and see where I am next. It's hard to say where I'll be. Traveling a lot. So
Well, wherever you go, just know that my love is with you, my support is with you, and I'm so grateful for you in my life as someone that I love dearly and someone that I respect, and I feel very tender about it because you're one of the main people carrying forth my lineage. And you have all these other lineages too that you're carrying, but I know that it's in good hands and good heart. So I just want to applaud you for being the unique shamanic soul that you are, for following your own path, for being humble to learn from teachers, but to also be willing to step up and to be the Aquarian shaman that you are, and to own that. It's not an ego thing. It's about saying, I'm here to offer planetary service to those who hear the call. I say the wolf call, the oh, you hear that call, and that you're here for those who hear that. So we need to close up, and so I'm just holding you in my heart, thanking you again, and I'm really excited that you're the first person that I've interviewed on this station with the Transformation Network with the Aquarian Shaman. Makes me happy, makes me proud. So thank you so much. And I'll see you in the dream time until I see you in person. Take good care of yourself and keep howling and keep looking at the stars. Ow! This is Star Wolf, and you've been listening to the Experiential Aquarian Shaman broadcast. Transform yourself, transform the world. Join me every second and fourth Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio to awaken your inner Aquarian shaman. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to my channel and connect with me on social media at Linda Star Wolf. For more information about my offerings and trainings, visit shamanicbreathwork.org. Thank you for taking this special time to journey with me.